right, let's make our little container slightly more complex because reasons. Exactly. If there weren't complex enough. So what I've done on one of the other models here of the one that actually contains the mistletoe is added latches. Now these are just really randomly assembled. There's no specific design feature to these, but this container now opens as well as the latches also rotate open and close. Now, what I've done with this is I added little tabs in the front and more hardware through, but these are attached exactly the same way that the lid is attached to the base. And these components are not nested within anything. So like these two lid components, you'll see the two latches here. They're all on at the same hierarchy, at the same level of all the other components on this project. You can nest them within, say, like the lid, but it's unnecessary. So how I've done this is the same way I modeled the tab lobes for the main hinge here. And I'll open up the other sketches. I just added more. And let me hide the lid and base. Oops, that was those two latches. And mistletoe. Same thing. I used the project tool to borrow the profile of the sketch of the container. And I just made these two simple sketches that are based around two circles rather than just the one right on the center here, and just drew lines between them essentially. So it's kind of an oversimplification, but at the same time, it is fairly simple. You can choose however many you would like to make, meaning that this design, of course, has two latches, kind of overkill for something so small. This could also easily take the place of your little thumb catch here and such. So your choice. This is just an additional option. So let me go over to our current example project. I meant to close that. The now questionable mistletoe, as it does not in fact have a mistletoe inside. Now, I would recommend, like I said, if you're going to decide to add a single latch, omit the tab here. It'll take its place. Or obviously the little plate features here, don't add those because that's where that's going to go. So let me make some duplicates. And the trick is if I copy and paste these full components, as such, it will copy everything about them and it will link the two. So what you should do, rather than copy and paste the components itself, add new components and copy and paste the object itself. I'll show you what I mean. I've already created these two additional components here, and I did exactly that. I have the lid, and you'll see the problem is it's an exact copy. So I'm going to delete these. Yes, deleteify. As well as the other here. Yes, deleteify. All right. Oh no, it deleted everything. Well, that's certainly a problem. So let's Control Z that. Great, that's all back now. Cool. So do not delete. That's certainly a problem there. But what you can do is right click and you should be able to separate the two objects. Let's see if we can do this here. So override texture map. Dip, 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 dip. It is not letting me do that. So that's problematic. All right, fine. We'll just hide those and I'll just create new lids and such. Yeah, that's problematic, most certainly. So just going to create completely new pieces here. Not really a big deal. We knocked it out pretty quickly. Make sure you activate the appropriate component when you go to extrude, making just a simple extrusion. I'm omitting the circle. I don't need the tab in this case. And I'm going to draw this up, I don't know, apparently 40. That seems more reasonable. This time, just to simplify, I'm not going to put a taper on it. Plus, it'll make it more distinct. Switch to the base component, repeat extrude, the bottom, Go down enough to where it covers. So that looks like -50, we'll say. Great. Okay. And obviously, if you're going to do anything unique to these, go ahead and do that. Meaning, let me activate the whole thing. I will go back and hide and collapse the previous components that we were working with. Don't need those getting in the way. What I mean by that is, all right, I can still share that. That's okay. I don't know. Let's add a chamfer to the top just for grins. 10 is rather, 10. There we go. Sure. Odd box. Repeat chamfer, bottom, 10. Just adding features to this. No big deal. Okay. So I'll have to redraw the hinge lobe and such. That's not a problem. But what I do want to do is create a new version, basically of like I did for the hinge here, but for the front that will become the basis for both the lobes that the latch is attached to, and of course the latches themselves. So to do that, new sketch, as always. Switch to, in this case, because I drew it the wrong way, front view, which is actually the side relative to the object. Now, I'm trying to get to the origin plane there, so if we can't quite get to it, just hide the object. And of course, it's also interfering with the sketches I had before. There we go. Nice. All right, now again, I am not activating any of the components. I want this sketch outside of the components so that I can create the extrusions within those component bodies. I'm going to use a project tool. So just hit P or drop down to project, include project. I'm going to select my bodies. I want all of that. Okay, so now again, I can hide those and I just am left with the sketch profiles. That's why. Now, before I drew a sketch and just made a circle based directly on the outline here. I don't want that this time. What I want is circles above and below the split line, the lid and base. Now I'm going to start with a 2-point circle simply because I want it to start at the line itself. And I just moused over the center point because the triangle constraint came on. Great, that's not necessary. And I'm going to draw out, I plan on using like M3 or 3mm hardware, so I'll make this large enough. So let's say 6. 6 seems kind of small. Let's make that a little bit larger. If nothing else, just so you can see it more clearly. 10mm for that circle. Great. And again, the reason I'm doing that way is it starts connected already to that profile, and I have a center point. That's going to be 3mm there because that's what the screw is going to go through. Great. Now, I'm making this with screws, as you can see here. You could easily draw this in with some kind of bar or something like that. And tell you what, that's exactly what I'll do for the bottom, just to model it that way so you can see how that can work. I'll still start it the same way. Create 2-point circle, and sure, why not? I'll let the center point be the case there. 10, the 0 thing is stuck on my computer here. Repeat circle. And that's going to be a 3mm. Or I can make this slightly larger. It doesn't matter. Tell you what, we'll make it a little bit larger just because I'm going to turn that into a bar. Okay. All right. So I also need this to have some sort of lobe design. Same thing as the original hinge. So for this, it can be just kind of whatever you want. If you want it to be a rectangle out of that, great. You could make it just kind of a fit point spline. That's fine too. I'm going to start right in the center. Or over here, just kind of doodle up. That's a little bit too large. Nope. And just kind of shrink to fit, I guess. Sure. And I'll make it again somewhere down here. Honestly, I could make this a lot easier on myself by using some other tool. There we go. Great. Remember, you can adjust those. Doesn't matter. I just kind of made it this odd shaped lobe. Down to the bottom, I'm going to make it easier on myself. I'll use an ellipse because I just like making things round. There you go. Started at the edge though. And first thing I select is the outside edge of that outer circle, and then drawing upward. It's an unnecessarily elongated shape, but just kind of playing with this. All right, great. There we go. These are going to become my lobes. So I'll finish that sketch. So the next thing I want to do is now create what will become my latch. Now, I could have done it on the same sketch, but it just gets so complicated. So let's label that lobe or latch lobe. And I'll now create another sketch, same deal. And that I'll label as latch. And in this case, I'm going to do the same, but I'm going to continue to borrow stuff. So I'm going to project again. Make sure you have sketch selection so you can actually select the sketches. And I'm just using some of these as my reference points. That's all. I could of course copy the container as well, but it's kind of unnecessary. I don't need to select the lobes. Really, I just need to duplicate those circles. Hit OK. All right. So this is the part where you need to make sure that you're creating enough space. And what I mean by that is the latch can be whatever shape you want. That could be a straight line. I'll use another fit point spline if I want to make it kind of curvy outy. Great. But one of the things you need is this circle has to partially wrap around this center circle. What I mean by that is the top one is going to be going to be a complete hinge. It's a complete circle around that what will be that metal screw. This needs to be partial. And how do you calculate how far to go? Just a little ways around. So first what I'm going to do is I'll just use an offset line to make that the second line here. Whatever. Honestly, I'm only making it thick enough to where it seems like it'll be strong enough. So -4 seems reasonable. Okay, that's just making a duplicate of that line. I'll trim off the excess later. But what this is also doing is making this, starting to make a partition on the circle. Basically, let me switch back over to here, and you can see what I've done. And I'll hide the appropriate hardware and the bottom latch. As you can see here, this latch partially covers this circle. And what I did is I kind of just divided this circle into 3 parts. So 360. I just forgot the math on that. Sorry. 360 divided by 3. No, not plus. Okay. I should have had this dialed up before. Divided by 3. Yeah, 120. So 120 increments. I was right. I just second guessed myself. That's not an exacting number. That's just a good amount so that it has enough of a little bit of a lip. When you push that latch over, that allows the printed plastic to stretch and deflect enough to snap over, but not so much that it obscures it where it won't move at all. Honestly, this could also be a trial and error thing, meaning that you print a latch, it works, great. It doesn't, all right, go back and edit this. Maybe you add a little bit of a chamfer or a fillet to the inside here just to give yourself a little more clearance. But the good thing is this part here that is now an angle, that acts as a ramp to help kind of snap over that curved element. So, great. From here, all that means is I'm going to draw a line from the center point, and I'll tab over and say 120 degrees. Problem is it's measuring from there. 120, and you can draw it outwards if you need. That's fine. It's just going to be a line that you can then, trim off. And I'll do that. Just trim off the little extra chunks. No, not that one. Trying to trim that one. There we go. And you can leave that. That's okay. That's not interfering with anything. Just going around and kind of trimming off some pieces. Okay. And you can see now that as I mouse over this tab or this part of the sketch, it's partitioned off, and I have just enough over that lip that it should catch and snap in place, but not like snap off. And obviously, don't forget to add a little tab or something that you can actually grab onto. And all that would be, gonna draw like a little lobe here. That's all. Could obviously make that much more elegant, but whatever. Gonna start doing funky things if you play with it too much. Okay, there you go. That'll work. Pretty simple, pretty straightforward. Maybe I can add a little bit of that or do it later. Okay. Looks like a jumble. It'll get cleared up in a second. All right. So I'm going to go back to home view. Let me save there. Latch, sketch. All right. So now we need to start unhiding components and things like that. So I'm going to make the latch first, and that'll be my reference point. All right. The latch is going to be on its own component entirely. So might as well go ahead and create that now. New component. Label it as latch. There we go. I activate it. That's okay. Hit extrude, and I'm going to just start selecting. I have what's definitely going to be the main body, little funky tab, partial circle, and complete circle. Now, start profile plane, fine. I want to make it go two sides symmetrically, and let's do that as an overall distance. Let's make it a 10 millimeter tab. There you go. Now you can see how that instantly gets developed. Great. Okay. Looks like I got a little bit of an odd inclusion there. Probably should have trimmed that out. That's going to be a hole. So if you notice something like that come up, definitely go back in, edit that feature, and make sure you select that little chunk of the profile. There we go. Not a big deal. All right. Now, unhide that sketch again because it's going to do that. But this time I want the lobes. All right. You can see the whole thing. Remember, first we select the appropriate component. So let's say lid. All right. Now we extrude. Got to select the two parts, the lobe and the circle. If you're having trouble selecting with that latch object in the way, just hide it temporarily. Now, this time I'm going to have to make multiple extrusions, two for each side. So start is not at the profile plane, but at an object. I'm using the latch itself as my starting point. All right. Now, I don't know, 2 millimeters seems reasonable. Oh, not an offset. Wrong spot. I meant distance. There we go. So I'm just making that little tab there. Go back, set that to 0. Accidentally hit there. That looks a little flimsy. Let's beef that up to like 4 millimeters. Like I said, thin gets pretty thin quickly. There we go. Repeat, do the other side. Same sketch. Oops. All three. There we go. It's already trying to extrude from there. I want to start at object, select the other side of the latch profile, and it throws it out that way. Problem is, I don't know why it's doing 5. That should be 4. Great. Again, join, and it's automatically joining and becoming part of that component, the lid. Switch components. Base. Repeat. A lot of this. Selecting the bottom lobe. Oops. I want that. Now, in this case, instead of using a screw for the bottom, I'm going to make this printable. So I'm going to select all of the parts, starting at an object, that face, -4 because we're just using 4. Great. Join, it automatically becomes part of the lower component. Orbit around, repeat. The lobes, circle, and inner circle. Start, object, face of the object, distance, 4 millimeters, joins. Perfect. One final step on this would be, for modeling it, is I need something between there for that to all to latch onto. So let me hide the latch itself so I can see a little more clearly. And one final extrude. Now I want just that chunk there, just that inner circle. I want to extrude symmetrically in both directions, starting at the profile plane this time, but the extent is rather than distance, I can select all, and it's just automatically going to go all the way. Obviously, don't cut. I want to join. I want that little bar to be there. Hit OK. Nice. All right. Activate everything. Unhide all the things, and except for the sketch. I want to hide that. All right, there you go. Very simple, albeit kind of awkward latch. Last thing on this would be bring in the hardware and also add a joint. So this is a 3mm hole. Let's double check the distance. That is 18mm. Great. So I go to McMaster-Carr, insert, McMaster-Carr, and just going to find some kind of a screw, a bolt here, and we will drop that in place. It's an M3 because it's a 3mm bit. It needs to be slightly more than 14mm wide, so let's say 16. That sounds almost reasonable. Hooray for stainless steel. Go down to the one that doesn't matter. In this case, there's fine threads, coarse threads. We're not really worrying about that at the moment. Pick one that works for you. Remember that you do have to select the appropriate option to import. Just remember, go to a step file. Just try to remember the next step is a step file. Easy way to remember, for me at least. And we hit download. It'll bring your model into the project after it thinks about it for a moment. There we go. So move it out. I accidentally selected two things. I wanted to select that object that just flew in. There we go. Instead of grabbing the arrow, I accidentally selected the lid. There we go. And rotate it 90 degrees. And I'll use a joint tool to snap that in place. You can use the checkbox here, capture position. It'll lock it now in that place. Neato. All right. Now we'll use a joint to drop that in. Now, to do this, I want to select at the underside of that component, but inside the thread. So what I do is I mouse over that face that's the bottom, press and hold Control, and it locks your selection to that face. And I can grab that little X right in the middle. It ghosts out. Where do you want to put that? Remember that the thing you select first is what will move. The thing you select second is where it will move to. I mouse over this lobe, and I want it smack in the middle. If you have trouble selecting that, mouse over the face of the lobe, press and hold Control again. Select the plus sign in the middle. It'll fly over, lock it in place. Clearly, I measured poorly and should have used a much longer bolt. Deal with it later. Okay, snap it in place. It can stay as a rigid joint. Remember, if you animate it, it just jiggles like it's been glued in place and gives you anxiety. There you go, locked in place. Let's save there. Save. Hardware installed. And now we need to just put the joints in, the moving ones. So select joint. Again, this has to be the latch, lid, body, all that. They have to be their own components, not just a body inside of the main project. Has to be their own individual components. So again, the thing you select first is what will move. The thing you select second is where it will move to. I want to select the, if you want, the inside of that cylinder, or you can just snap it to one of these faces. If you have trouble getting to it, hide a component, hide an object. There we go. I'm going to hide that screw too. And I need to select the inside of that cylinder or that face. So press and hold Control, locks the selection right there, that face. Great. Unhide the lid. Same deal. I'm going to mouse over the inner lobe this time, press and hold Control, snap position. All right. I'm going to change the type of motion to revolute, and it's going to move. Now, obviously, it clips through right now. That's okay. Hit OK. Let me collapse some stuff so we can kind of see what we're doing here. Now, just go to that joint, set revolute, mouse over the little arrow key. Go ahead and check these boxes so it starts up, and grab and move. Doesn't matter how far you want to move it to. Let's say, sure, 125 degrees, whatever. Hit preview if you're not sure. Whoop, clickety clack. There you go. So it moves. Huzzah. Now, again, because I made a new project here, or I had to make new bodies here, I've got to do a few things like remake the lobes on here. And that's a pretty quick thing, just repeating exactly what we just did. So let's activate the lid. We drop the joints, and let's get the sketches back out. I want my hinge sketch unhidden, and this one we're just going to repeat, no problem. Extrude the back hinge, the lobe, the circle. There we go. Same profile plane start. Yep. I want it symmetric. Overall length, I don't know, 10, 20. Okay, sure, fine. You might make this a little bit larger just because it's a little bit larger project. Okay, 30. I don't know why it's defaulting to cut. We don't need that. We want to join. There we go. Great. Switch the base component, repeat. Extrude. If you're having trouble selecting everything, hide the lid. And it did hide my hinge sketch. So circle, circle, and the bottom lobe. There we go. Only this time I do need to unhide again. So a lot of toggling back and forth. I need it to start at the object and the start of that lobe. And this time, I don't know, we'll make it 10. Oh, it's going the wrong way. So let's make that -10 to go the opposite direction. Cut, no, I want it to join. It becomes part of the bottom. Great. Repeat again to make the other half, or the other half. There we go. Circle, circle, lobe. Start, set object, select the face. Distance, 10. Again, it's cutting. Nope, I want it to join. There we go. Great. Just repeating that. All right, let me hide this hardware so I can get it making the joint again. Okay, let's activate all the things. Make a joint. Same. Inside, mousing over the lobe there. Press and hold. Locks in place. Again, mousing over the lobe. Press and hold control. Snaps in place. Motion. Revolute. Double check. Great. It's going the opposite direction. Oh, and I still haven't hollowed this out. That's all right. Okay. We will make adjustments to that last joint there. There we go. Want to activate all that stuff. Set myself my flags. Let that open up. Now, don't worry that the latch isn't moving with the lid right now. That's okay. Once we finish this, it'll work together. Hit okay. Great. Don't forget, one last thing you need to do, ground this new base. Right click on that component all the way up. Second one down is ground. Boop. All right. So now opens and closes, and that latch flips up and down. So you've basically just created a slightly more complex object here. There you go. Revert position, snaps back in place. Now, obviously, if I actually want this to be a container, I do kind of need that to be hollow. So since I forgot to do that before, let me just snap back in place before I did any of that stuff. Before I made the hinges. There we go. And in this case, let's just use a shell tool. Let's simplify this. Shell there, 3 millimeters. Great. It's going to take that chamfer into account. Nice. Hit OK. Switch to the lid. Repeat. Shell on lower face, 3 millimeters. Hit OK. Great. So now I'm going to hide everything, and when I snap back to current, it'll recalculate everything. But because I made that shell before I made these lobes, doesn't interfere. Snazzy container. Okay. So that's just adding features. So if you wanted to make this like latchable, there you go. You could add as many latches you want, make 20 latches on it. Doesn't matter. It's not opening for anything. I mean, it's 3D printed. You could open it with a rock. So whatever. But just a way to, albeit somewhat convoluted, but more steps to it, way to make a lidded latchable container. All right. Good luck with it.